yes, indeed. Keeping our focus on what's ahead. So we're setting an agenda for the political officers, governors-elect, the president-elect. So just trying to see the job of work that they've got on their hands. This morning, we got Mr. Pascal Udibo, who's a financial consultant. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you.
You know, looking through some stats, you just sometimes you just wonder. For instance, it's there that in 2030, maybe about 10, 11 years from now, Nigeria's population will be 263 million. Mm-hmm. That's 44.1%, much more than we had in 2015. Mm-hmm. That makes us one of the fastest growing populations in the world. And then I looked at some other stats where, apart from those misery index, let me leave those ones, and then look at in about, I think in another decade, there was a research that said 40% of the jobs that are available at the moment will be replaceable as a result of AI. It means that, of course, if they're replaceable, they'll be replaced. Clearly, they'll be replaced. And then in another decade or so, there was a research from this Australian university that talks about the fact that 40% of the courses they're doing will be obsolete. And so, you know, you look at all of these stats, and where are we in the scheme of things?
Thank you for inviting me. And, you know, I can feel the pain, and this pain is not more like a physical pain, which means you can just take something to deal with it. This is emotional pain. It's an internal pain. When you can see speed on various sectors in other crimes, and what you notice here is not even the beginning of the race. So I don't think the challenge, therefore, is for the media and the organized private sector to begin to put pressure on these politicians you've elected. You've won now, whether you rigged or you won fair and square. The challenge now is to put pressure on you to deliver. And that must become the agenda on the table. And what I mean by this is this. You know, the speed at which the world is evolving. You know, I went to a corporation yesterday, very large corporation in this country, and I noticed that they had 2 security men on every floor. But they have used technology to release they have about 1 security man from every floor. So the security was telling me that about 100 of us have been relieved of our work. And that he was quite glad that he was not amongst them. But I could see what they were doing. They had used, just as we were saying, using machine learning and robotics and artificial intelligence to drive productivity. Of course, definitely, humans are going to become, if you're not careful, almost obsolete in terms of productivity. But having said that, and I think that's the challenge, to begin to engage the politicians, albeit with very clear conscience, that now that you are now occupying a position of authority, can we put your brain to task? Is it possible? Honestly, it is enlightened self-interest. You are really pushing this mass people to the wall. If you do not get your acts together, and that's what I'm asking for at this time, can we get transformational leaders out of this crop of politicians, having won battles fought hard as it may be? Is it possible that we begin to engage the governors, begin to engage the presidency, the legislators, to move away from politics and get into governance almost immediately? And this can be done so that they can be challenged to bring in very innovative, radical, disruptive strategies and methods to take care of these people. Because I believe that business and leadership and politics there must be a business and leadership or politics love as a model.
Do you think
the reason for which you are getting these things is so that the people will be happy? It's not an end.
Do you think our laws, in as much as you want to see that happen, do you think our laws has a limiting factor, barrier for the governors to be able to hit the ground running, forget about politics because we've passed that stage, and look at governance?
No, the law is made for man, not man for the law. has always been my take. And to tell you the truth, one of the things leaders deal with is challenges, problems. That's the work of a leader. So if you find you are being ring-fenced due to, what I would call anachronistic laws, your job is to sit down and find a way to get around it, especially when it concerns for the good of the people. The sheer number of unemployed people out there, remember, it is frightening, absolutely frightening. And if they tell you the number of people that applied for an NMPC job alone, you will weep for this country. And at best, they can only take maybe 1,000. I mean, if maybe because I've not hired for in the past, say, 10 years.
So you don't think the laws, you don't think our laws can help in any way to solve the problem? Or?
There's no way. What the laws really are for is for the good of the society. But if a law becomes, becomes an impediment to growth, I give you an instance. If up till today we speak that a state cannot, I hear they're beginning to deal with it on power. If I was to advise any governor today, you must find a way to bring power to your people.
Okay.
Because it's at the base of...
Should powers be devolved?
Sorry?
Should powers be devolved to the states?
What I mean by electricity?
No, I mean, should power be devolved to the states such that they now take charge of their resources and develop their states?
This your suggestion is really, power does not belong to the state any longer. The power has been privatized. I hope you're aware.
I'm not talking of power as in electricity.
I'm talking about power as electricity.
Okay, I'm looking at the laws now because there's devolution of powers.
Okay, you mean political power?
Yes.
That's been the conversation. That's been the conversation. There is no way they will not do it. If it doesn't happen now, it will happen in the future. Because they have hit the wall. I just saw you discussing about the security challenge. It's almost everywhere. There is something convulsing. They just need to rise up to the occasion. If not, it will swallow them. It will. Political power, as is presently constituted, must confront the challenges we face as a nation and become transformational in their thinking. Radical ways to resolve these issues so as Nigeria can breathe.
Now, currently, from what Chamberlain said, one of those depressing stats that we've had to, deal with is that of unemployment, and you spoke about it a few minutes ago. As at this moment, it's about more than 23%. As at 2010, unemployment problem was just like 5.10%.
Okay.
Before that, it was higher. What were we doing right at the time?
No, what you should be asking, what did you do wrong to move up to that capacity? You are procreating more than you are growing as a business, as a country, and as a politics, as an entity. You must listen.
We're having more birds.
You are having more birds, more mouths to feed than you are economically viable. And let me put this in perspective. You will have to address your demography. You have to sit down and bring things and deal with issues of religion, culture. That's what transformational leaders do. Transformational leaders tell the people, this is where we are headed. These are the things we will need to do to get there.
The Paul Kagame of Rwanda do
convince them, and they will deliberately on their own. If somebody has 3, 4, 5 wives, and you tell the individual, you are shooting yourself in the foot. I had a conversation with 2 friends, two of them Muslims. One had 1 wife, the other one had 4 wives. 3 wives. Was heading to the 4th one. So he was trying to say, as a Muslim, he is entitled to 4. But I said, your senior has 1. And that guy is a senior in the corporation. That's his senior. Has only 1. So the point I'm making here is that we will need to look ourselves in the face and look at what works for us as a people.
Let me add to this so that you also respond to it, maybe with the other part of the answer. Because the other religions that we have in this country, the 2 leading ones, we have seen other climes who practice this same religion that we practice here. We've seen the development that goes on in those other countries. Why is this?
That is why I believe very strongly that it's not religion. It has to do with Africa's problem is ignorance. I mean, that's another thesis altogether. You know, the faith of practice said that without knowledge, the people perish. The perishing you are noticing in our country is a clear indication of the lack of knowledge you have. You need to invest heavily in capacity. A lot of people just don't know what, how, and where. I am a training consultant. I've trained around the world, and I can tell you that. And it is not Nigeria alone. I've been to Dakar, I've been to Kenya, I've been to Kigali, I've gone to Botswana, saying that Africa's issue. That's why the more resources you have, the more fights you have.
You know, speaking of which, even
more
though
wars you have.
Even though, as much as one hates to bring this kind of question up, but because it sounds as though we'll be defeatist, not looking at what plans we really need to have, because without a proper plan, we can't get ourselves out of it. So, in our own situation now, which you say Africa, but let me look at Nigeria. What can you describe as our low-hanging fruits that we can leverage on?
Before I answer your question, I don't like the word low-hanging fruits because it frustrates you. And
Yeah, I already explained that. Look, yes,
you're thinking,
it may make us sound escapist.
Yeah,
but we still have to talk about it.
Listen, it all falls and rises with leadership, if you ask me. You know, no matter what, if you have a crop of leaders or a person or a group of persons that have determined in their heart that, you know what, we've gotten this political power so that we will make a difference, they can now sit down to set the tone and the agenda of development. Even if I bring all the agenda of development to an individual that feels that, you know what, the end is being a governor, the end is being a president, you cannot do anything. That's not, you are stuck with him for the next 4 years. So the point I'm making here is that, you know, is to keep prodding the leadership, the politicians who have gotten political power, that is a means to an end. That they need to now, that the war has, that the job has now started, which means getting the right people, attracting the right kind of capital and business sense. Because the essence of politics is economic emancipation.
Let me also bring this up, because I know that some corporations in this country now are beginning to appoint certain persons or create offices that will be the liaison with government and themselves. But there seems to be that gap between the private sector and government and the public sector, which is government. What do you think that you know, government themselves are doing enough to communicate how government works? And is the private sector themselves leaning and making themselves available to understand what works and how government works, so we can bridge that gap that makes it us and them? Because almost everywhere you go, you see a private sector person says, no, look, the way government works is completely different. And some will tell you, if I leave private sector, I can't function in government. What are we doing to bridge that gap so we can all understand the need to move this country forward?
I have a suggestion. And what you have said is, Chimolene, this is right on point. This has been the challenge. But these two guys, these two people work from different sides of the brain. The incentives are totally different. You know, one private sector incentive is to get things done, speed and fast. The other one,
higher reward.
One is to generate incentive and you know, the other guys just expend. Now, you need to be able to bring that marriage, and that is one of the things we are suggesting to a lot of the new forming governments. Set up equivalent of the Nigerian Economic Summit Group in your region, in your states. A private sector-led public sector development platform. You know, when the Nigerian Economic Summit Group started, nobody gave it a chance. You know, they started saying there's a colloquium, it's a colloquium. But now there's been almost an insidious simmering of the competences, and that's what the private sector brings to the public sector. Competence. You know, public-private partnership. At the beginning, the competence is with the public sector, public-private sector. Over time, as you bring that marriage, they begin to rub it off on the public sector, and over time, it becomes a lot much cheaper and better to have public sector to do things. So I totally agree with you, and my suggestion is to set up this infrastructure that brings in the confidence, that enables the public sector to be able to weigh their performance Now, I've given this before here, just that I don't have flip chart here to show you. At the tip of a pyramid is the vision. The vision is driven by strategy. Strategy is driven by business model. Business model is driven by action plans, and the action plans are driven by KPIs. This whole thing sits on a well-compensated workforce. Now, private sector knows this pretty well. All right. Now, the thing I'm saying here is that if most of the public sector people, the politicians, have their vision, they need to know that that vision has to be driven by the strategy. And this strategy can be measured, is measured. Because if you say you have a strategy, I will always ask you, what's your business model?
Let's start from the beginning. All other things on the pyramid are functional. Let's start from the top of the pyramid.
Yes.
What is the Nigerian vision? Because unless we have that, all these strategies, KPIs, all that engine is active. Which government will chart the Nigerian vision? You will remember every government will come with one program, and after that government is gone, most times that vision goes with that government and another one comes. And so there is no perpetuity of this program. So how do we come up with a national ethos that all these KPIs, all these wonderful other things that you will work towards?
Your frustration is also very noted, and it has been a conversation for a long time. And that's why when I started, I said, we must extract from this crop of politicians transformational leaders. When a leader shows up, you'll be aware. When a transformational leader shows up, you also will be aware. There are people occupying positions of authority because they believe it is their rights. They believe I should be here. They believe it's an end in itself. There are people who will begin to do work even without that leadership rank on their shoulders. And what I say here is that let's keep having this conversation. Let's begin to be continuously and continually be unsatisfied with what is going on. At a point, both the led and the lead and the leadership will give in to it. It's around the corner, because we can't really go further. Because the conversations I see every day on television, on the newspapers, and the frustrations you see on the streets is a clear indication that we seek, and this land yearns for a transformational leader. Someone who will come and say, guys, let's pull up our straps together. And this is going to be hard, but this is the way to go. And it will paint the picture. Man is a picturer being, likes to see things in pictures, not in words. It will show us the Eldorado, the Nigeria of tomorrow. It will show the youth that, what, it may be painful today, but tomorrow is coming. It will show everybody. It will show the businessmen. People are going to invest. One of the things I'm suggesting to a governor, get your people to donate money to you. They will, if they see the vision. People will give you of their substance. But they don't see, when they look at the present crop of politicians, they don't see faith, they don't see hope. And when you don't see faith, when you don't see hope, people you have what they call learned helplessness.
Is it like we saw at that time, the Security Trust Fund in Lagos?
Absolutely. It's rather self-interest. Let me give you an instance. The Imo State Airport was built by the people, not by FAN. I hope you know. Yeah. The FAN refurbished it. That airport was built by people donating 5 naira, 10 naira, 100 naira, 200, 1,000 naira. Corporates gave up, that's how it was built. So if you get a transformational leader, these same people, they have not died, they're still there, will invest in you. All they just do is that they want you not to disappoint them.
How quickly do you see a reversal of the 23.86% unemployment rate?
I don't know where you begin, but why you just think things don't just happen. I hope you know that. Things don't just happen. If you begin to do something today, one, cut down on your procreation rate. Two, begin to give incentives to corporates. I've always said this severally. That's what is called give tax incentives. Not tax avoidance. Give people what they call tax credits, which government has signed now, as I think is the Executive Order 9 or 8, that allows large corporates to build infrastructure in exchange for some tax relief. Yeah. Begin to allow this to simmer down. You will see if the government does not give jobs.
And states too need to leverage on that.
Absolutely. States need to leverage on that, yeah.
But the thing about all of this, we can't give up. We need to keep hammering, chipping away at the block, because this is the country we've got. Yeah. The future. Our kids have got to do better. We can't live, we have to live it better than we met it, as we always say. But we always appreciate your coming on this morning. And Pascal Udigbo is a financial consultant.